Hello all, welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we are going to discuss about Azure Databricks. So let's start. So what is Azure Databricks? Databricks is a software company founded by the creators of Apache Spark. So what is Apache Spark basically? So Apache Spark is an analytical engine which basically help us to process large amount of data. For example, big data, machine learnings. So for data processing, basically we use Apache Spark. So Azure Databricks basically is a combination of Apache Spark plus Databricks plus Enterprise Cloud, which could be a AWS or Azure. So it's a combination of three components which make a Azure Databrick. So Databricks develop web-based platform for working with Spark, which provide automated cluster management. Azure Databricks is a fully managed version of the open source Apache Spark Analytics, and it provides optimized interface to storage system for the fastest possible data access. So basically it's a completely managed service. You don't need to require or you do not need to spend basically any kind of infrastructure to set up Azure Databricks. It's a completely managed service which you can use it. Azure Databrick is intimately integrated with Azure storage and computing resources such as Azure Blob Storage, SQL Data Warehouse, and Data Lake Store. So basically, you can integrate this Azure Databricks basically with Azure Blob Storage, SQL Data Warehouse. So you can easily integrate with all these Azure services. And also it's supported by multiple programming language include Python, Scala, R, SQL, or supported by Azure Databricks basically. So all these languages supported by Azure Databricks. So if you have to write any queries, so you can write in Python, Scala, R, and SQL. And so whatever you are comfortable, you can write the queries to like process data basically. Now there are Databricks in Azure. So Azure Databricks is a data analytics platform optimized for Microsoft Azure Cloud Service platform. So Azure Databricks basically offer three environments. So basically you can use Azure Databricks for three purposes: Databricks SQL, Databricks Data Science and Engineering, and Databricks Machine Learning. So these three environments basically it supports. So let's see what all these three. So first we have Databricks SQL. So Databricks SQL provide a user-friendly platform. This helps analytics who work on SQL queries to run queries on Azure Data Lake, create multiple visualizations, and build and share dashboards. So with the help of Databricks SQL, basically you can generate a customized dashboard. You can visualize the data, whatever you fetch from with the help of queries. So you can run multiple things with Databricks SQL. Next, we have Databricks Data Science and Engineering. So Databricks Data Science and Engineering provide an interactive working environment for data engineer, data scientist, and machine learning engineers. The two ways to send data through the big data pipeline, which is ingest into Azure through Azure Data Factory in batches, or stream real time by using Apache Kafka, Event Hubs, or IoT Hubs. So if you have to inject or process data, you can use these two options basically. You can use Azure Data Factory, or you can use Apache Kafka, Event Hubs, or IoT Hubs. So there are many tools basically which you can use to process the data. Next, we have Databricks Machine Learning. So Databricks Machine Learning is complete machine learning environment. It helps to manage services for experiment tracking, model training, feature development, and management. It also does model serving. So basically these are the three environments which is supported by the Apache Databricks. Azure Databricks. So there are a few advantages, pros and cons of Azure Databricks. So we will see first pros. So it can process large amount of data with Databricks, and since it is a part of Azure, the data is cloud native. The cluster are easy to set up and configure. So there is a very straightforward if you have to create a cluster. We will see in demo. It has an Azure Synapse Analytic Controller as well as the ability to connect to your Azure DB. It is integrated with Azure Active Directory. So for authentication authorization purpose, you can integrate Databricks with Azure AD also for security perspective basically. It supports multiple languages. Scala is the main language, but it also works with Python, SQL, and R languages. So these are the basically advantages or pros of the Azure Databricks. Now we will see the cons. So it does not integrate with Git or any other versioning tool. So you cannot directly integrate it with any versioning tool. It currently only support HD Insight and not Azure Batch or Azure Toolkit. So these are the basically cons. Next, we will see what is the Azure Databricks Workspace. So because whatever you do in Azure Databricks, you do all your jobs in Workspace only. So in Azure Databricks Workspace is an environment for accessing all of your Azure Databricks assets. The workspace organizes objects such as notebook, libraries, experiments, queries, and dashboards into a folders and provide access to the data and computational resources such as clusters and jobs. You can manage the workspace using the Workspace UI, the Databricks CLI, and the Databricks REST API references. So there are three ways basically you can use Azure Databricks Workspace with the help of UI, CLI, and REST API. But in generally we use UI only. The workspace contains the following component dashboards. So it provides access to visualizations like whatever the data you are processing you can see on a dashboards. Libraries, package available to notebook or job running on the clusters. We can also add our own libraries. So if you have to add your own libraries, then you can also add those libraries. Repos, a folder whose content are co-versioned together by synchronizing them to a local Git repos. Next, we have experiment, a collection of ML flows run for training and ML models. So basically there are a lot of things in Azure Databricks. So I have covered very basic things. Now we will see Azure Databricks architecture. So you can see this particular diagram here. So it's a basic architecture of Azure Databricks. So this is basically Azure Resource Manager. Here what we have: storage account, compute resources, network. This is basically a resource group. It's all created by the Databricks. So there are basically two options we have here. If you want to integrate it with your own virtual network, you can do that also, or else Microsoft Azure will create a resource group for you if you not select own virtual network basically. Next, here basically we have Databricks Workspace, blob storage, bnet, basically at VMs, whatever the how many workers we need to run the job. So those all the things basically you can configure here. So when we use a Databricks to create a cluster, a Databricks appliance is deployed as an Azure resource in your subscription. Then we define the kinds and number of virtual machines to utilize, but Databricks take care of the rest. So when we create a workspace, a cluster, that time you have to define how many virtual machines you need to run or process the data. So based on requirement, we have to choose. A managed resource group is deployed into a subscription that will be with a VNet, a storage account, and a security group. So this part basically we are talking about here. And we will use the Databricks UI to manage the Databricks cluster once these servers are available. So once we create all the resources, then we can see the Databricks UI to manage all the clusters and all the other services basically. So this is something look like what is called a Databricks architecture basically. There are few important keywords when you work with Azure Databricks. So first and very important is notebooks. So a notebook is a web-based interface to a document that contains runnable code, visualizations, and explanatory text. And Azure Databricks notebooks provide real-time automatic versioning and built-in data visualizations. Next, we have repos. We have already discussed about repos. So Databricks repos provide source control for data and AI projects by integrating with Git providers. Next, we have libraries. So you can create your own libraries, and libraries can be written in Python, Java, Scala, and R. So you can develop your own libraries if you need any customized things. So you can do that also. Now we will see the demo. So what we will cover in demo, basically we will create an Azure Databrick workspace first, then we will create a cluster. It could be a single node. There are, we will see in demo. Then we will create a notebook, and finally what we will do, we will upload one of the CSV file in storage account, and we will read the data in Azure Databricks. So see, so let's move to the demo. So I'm on my Azure portal. First we will create a Azure Databricks service. So we'll search for data Azure Databricks. So we'll create. So I'm not going to create a new resource group. I'm going to use my existing resource group, which is Databricks. Workspace name, it should be unique. So I'm going to give demo 213. Okay, it's taken. Region, I'll choose my region. So it's East US. Let me verify my resource group. It's in which region? East US. Okay. So I'll choose my region here, East US. And pricing tier, we have here standard, premium, and trial. So I'm going to use premium. Next we have networking. So deploy Azure Databricks Workspace with secure cluster connectivity, no public access. So I'm keeping default, and I don't have any virtual network. So it's going to create a VNet. If you have your own VNet, you can click select yes, and you can choose your VNet. So I'm going to be default option, which is no. Next, advanced, enable infrastructure encryption. So I don't want, because it's just a demo purpose, so I don't want any encryptions. Next, text and review and create. So it's checking all the configurations. So validation is succeeded. We'll go and hit on create. So it is going to take basically 3 to 4 minutes to create a Azure Databrick workspace. So we'll wait for 2 to 3 minutes. So my deployment is got completed. We'll go to resources. Here you can see a managed resource group. So because we have not chosen our VNet and all, so it's automatically created a managed resource group for us. If I'll go to this particular managed resource group, so you can see these are the things basically it's created from managed identity, storage account, network security group, and virtual networks. These are the part of this particular resource group, which is created by Azure itself. So I'll go back to my resources. Now we will click on launch workspace. So it is signing using the AD single sign-on. So my workspace got created. Now what we need to do, we need to create a cluster. So we'll create a cluster now. So there's an option, set up a workspace. So first we will create a cluster. So we'll go to this plus icon new, and we'll click on cluster. So this is the multi-node cluster you want, or single node. So I'm going with single node cluster here. Access mode, single user only. So this is my user basically. Basically this is my AD user from which I am logged into Azure portal. So it's going to take this particular username. Database runtime. There are multiple options which we have. So I'm going with default one. Next we have node type. So these are the configurations basically. So based on our requirement, we'll choose this particular node. So it's going to create a VM with these configurations. So I'm going with the lash one, which is 14 GB and 4 core. And if you want to terminate after 120 minutes of inactively, you can do that also. So just a demo, I'm going to delete after this just demo. So I'm going to uncheck this option. We'll see what's in advanced options. So Azure data lake storage credential pass through. Okay, we don't require all these things. We don't have any environment variables. So I'm going to hit on create cluster. So it's going to take 2 to 3 minutes to create a cluster. We'll pause the video, then we will resume back. So my cluster got created. You can see the green symbol like it's running. So from here, basically, if you want, you can clone the existing cluster, or you can restart or delete the cluster, and you can also terminate the cluster from here. So now what we need to do next we need to create a notebook, and we need to attach a notebook to this particular cluster. So again, we will go to new, click on notebook. We'll choose notebook name, data notebook, default language. So you can choose a Python, SQL, Scala, R. So I'm going to choose Python as a language. Cluster. So we have only one cluster which is running. So I'm select this cluster. Basically, we are going to attach this particular notebook with the cluster, and we'll hit on create. So you can see the notebook with the name of data notebook is created. So I have created this notebook with the Python as a language. So if I'll do some basic operation like 1 plus 1, and will run the cell, so it's giving output 2. So I'll add another cell here basically. So if I'll go run print hello, sorry, spelling mistake. So it's printed hello. So basically we are running all the Python commands on this particular notebook. So now I'm going to delete this particular notebook. So now next what we need to do, we need to fetch the data which we have in CSV file. So what I have done, I have created a storage account. So let me go to storage account. So I have a storage account which is name is demo2122 something. So here basically I have created a container data, and under this container basically I have uploaded one CSV file which contains a lot of data. So basically we are going to fetch this particular data, we are going to process this particular data with the help of this particular notebook. So let's do that. So first thing what we need to do in Databricks, basically we need to mount this particular storage point. So for that what I will do, I have already a few commands, basically Python commands which we are going to use. This is the DB utilities which we are going to mount that particular storage account on this Databricks. So we will fetch, or we will take the CSV file which we have in storage account. So this is the source basically. So this is the URL of my storage account, and mount point will be mount my files, extra configurations. So again here I have my storage account URL, and this is the access key. So I need to change my access key here. So I'll go to access key. Okay, I'll hit on show key. So I'll copy this particular key, and I'll change it in configuration. So we will run this particular command in the notebook. If it gives us the status true, that means the mount is succeeded. If not, then we need to see what we are missing. So I'll hit run cell. So it's running command basically. So the status we got true. So it means our mount from Databricks to storage account is successful. Next, we want to see the files. Like we need to verify if our mount is successful or not. So for that, what I will do, I'll add another cell here basically, and I'll copy this particular command. So to display the mounted file. So you can see we have a file in a storage account which is name is data.csv. So if I'll go back to my container, we have a container which name is data, and under this particular container I have a file name called data.csv. So same file we can see here also. So now we need to read the CSV file. So I'll just change my CSV file name here. So to read the CSV file into a data frame, so I'm going to run this particular command. So I'll close the first cell. I'll add another console basically. And along with what I'll do, I'll again the display command also. So whatever we are going to store in data frames, so we will display that particular content. So I will again run cell. So you can see all the CSV data is loaded in the data notebook. So we have read our data from the CSV file. So there are a few options which you can use. So if you want to see this particular thing in dashboard view, so you can see this particular show in dashboard menu. So I'll hit on add a new dashboard here. So you can see all this data, it's coming in particular dashboard format basically. So you can do a lot of things. So you can generate a reports, you can present, you have to present something, you have to integrate with BI. So a lot of things basically you can do with the Databricks. So thank you all for today. See you in next video. Thank you so much.